Thanks for coming and listening to us. First, before I get started, I want to just touch on one thing that Steve Fuller was talking about in cybersecurity. There are many more things nowadays attached to the internet than there were 10 years ago, if you think about it. You might have had one device in your house that was connected to the internet, and now you probably have close to 10. So there are many more access points onto your network that make you more vulnerable, and because of that, Access has developed a cyber hardening guide to help you all secure your network and make sure that it is tied down safe. So afterwards, if anybody would like access to that or a copy of it, come see me. We'll be happy to get that to you. So what I've come here to talk about this afternoon, I'm going to tell you all a little bit about Access for those of you that don't know, and then I'm going to touch on a couple of our products, and mostly the technology that's built into those products, because that's the important takeaway. There are many. We have a huge product line and it'd be difficult to cover all of it, so we'll just get going. So Access has been around since 1984. We are a Swedish-based company. Our North American headquarters is up in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. Since 1984, we've expanded to offices in 40 countries and do business in close to 180. The global employment number is over 2,000 now. We continue to grow. That number is a couple years old. So since day one, Access has been focused on pushing the envelope when it comes to security and innovation. So starting in 1996, we developed the world's first IP-based camera. That camera was called the Net-Eye 200, and it did one frame every 17 seconds. So a huge jump forward in technology, but not really a very useful piece of equipment back then, unless you're looking at like a time-lapse photography kind of scenario. Since then, we've come out with encoders, which help companies migrate from an analog solution to an IP solution. We have our own chipset now that's built into all of our cameras that allows us to perform all these technologies that we have. We have ruggedized cameras for mobile applications, thermal cameras, PTZs. We have our own video management software. And starting in 2013, we really started to expand and cover more than just video surveillance. We now have our own line of access control products, door stations, storage, and numerous other accessories and components that you can attach to your network, all of which is completely IP-based. A little bit about our strategy and our go-to-market strategy. First of all, number one, we want to be a global market leader. We do sell more security cameras in North America than any other company. But being number one or being a leader doesn't just mean selling the most. It really means leading by example, educating the market, making sure we are a company that others in the industry, maybe new to the industry, can turn to for education and for guidance. Long-term loyal partnership is another part of our strategy that's made us very successful. JKS here, they're one of our partners, they're one of our integration partners that goes out and works directly with the end users to make sure that you guys are getting the support you need. We also work with video management service providers, application providers, technology partners. There's a full ecosystem of companies that have to work together to go into a security solution. So since day one, we've focused on working very closely with those partners to make sure that all of our other partners and end users have all the support they need. And then lastly, to be smart and innovative and come out with new products and solutions. As you can see by that previous timeline, we have been very innovative. Those aren't just Access first, those are industry firsts. And every year, Access reinvests 15 to 20% of revenue into product development. So we are trying to stay ahead of the curve, come out with the latest and greatest, and make sure that we're meeting our customers' needs. This is just our go-to-market strategy. As much as some of our end users would like, we don't sell direct. We go through a distribution model, so we work very closely with our integration partners like JKS. And these are just some of the vertical markets we play in. Everything from city surveillance, schools, government, transportation, retail. Access has the largest product portfolio in the market. So, there's a list of major verticals here, but if you have a need, we probably have a solution for you. Now I'm just going to go into a couple of our different products. The P32 series is one of our fixed dome lines, but I've picked this product specifically because of the technology that is built into it. As you can see here, the line of fixed domes, 1080p, 720p, indoor, outdoor, vandal resistant, IR, no IR. But what makes this line very important and useful in most applications, there are three things. Wide dynamic range, which I'll touch on, Zipstream technology, which was developed by Axis, and I will touch on as well, and the IR functionality of these cameras. If you don't know, if you don't have enough light, a camera can't see. The iris in the camera is very much like a human eye, and we need light to see as well. So when visible light isn't available, this camera has IR light built into it. So wide dynamic range forensic capture. I don't know if any of you had a chance to step outside this afternoon during lunch, but I'm sure it took your eyes a minute to adjust. It was probably very bright, and you probably didn't see that well for a couple seconds. Like I said, the iris in the camera is very similar to the human eye. So it has the same problems. It cannot see both light and dark at the same time. So what wide dynamic range forensic capture does is takes two exposures of the scene, one dark and one light, and melds them together to give you a much more usable image. As you can see here, there are two pictures that have wide dynamic range on and two that have it off. You can see the two that have it on, you get much more detail, especially in the bottom two pictures. The picture on your right, you can't see too much detail. You can see, it looks like a beautiful lake with a beautiful sunset, and there's somebody hanging around. The picture on the left, wide dynamic range is on. It's still a beautiful sunset, but now you can get some details on that person standing there. You can see the color of their jacket. If you were close, you'd be able to see the details in their face. You can see the detail in the foreground and in the background. And in a security solution, that is very important. If this were to be a trespasser and to be doing something wrong without wide dynamic range, you would have no way of identifying this person or making sure they do not come back. With wide dynamic range forensic capture, you get all the detail you need, and it is pretty easy to tell that this is Philip. I also mentioned IR. In this line of cameras, Axis has optimized IR. In a traditional security camera, there is a ring of IR illuminators that surround the lens, and useful for situations where there's not enough light, but it can be improved upon. That ring is not very power efficient. It also creates a lot of heat, which can create noise in your image, kind of a snowy look, and you won't get as much detail. With optimized IR, we have just 3 IR illuminators. Saves on power, also prevents the lens from overheating. And the third and most important thing is those IR lights are, the camera is smart enough to tell when people are getting close to the camera, and that light will dim itself as to not wash out anybody's face. With a traditional IR camera, if somebody were to get too close to it, basically their face would be flooded by the IR light and you wouldn't be able to see it. The third thing is Zipstream technology. This is a compression algorithm developed by Axis last year, and it works in conjunction with H.264, which is another compression algorithm that I'm sure the security folks in the room are familiar with. This technology acts on motion in detail, so it is able to dynamically compress different parts of the scene. Basically, the parts that are moving, the background, the white wall, the tree line in the background that we all know is not important to get too much detail on, it compresses those parts of the scene to a much greater extent than the stuff that's moving. People, you'll see an example, trains, and that helps you save on storage and bandwidth requirement. I know I was talking to a couple GCs in here today and a couple engineers, and for large projects, storage and bandwidth is a huge concern. You gotta have a big enough pipe to be able to push all that data, especially nowadays when these specs are calling for 3, 5, 4K, multi-sensor. You get a better image quality with all those cameras, but you also have a lot more data that you have to pull back. So Zipstream is very important. Like I said, fully dynamic and adapts to the scene, compresses different parts of the scene to a different extent. And on the next slide, I have an example. So this is a busy train station somewhere in Sweden would be my guess. And you can see the parts that are highlighted in green. The camera can tell that those are moving pixels and is making sure that those are coming through in full resolution and full frame rate. The other parts of the scene, the background, the tracks where nothing is moving, it is compressing that to a much greater detail. And you're really not losing, if you were to use this, you would really be able to not see a difference in image quality. If something were to come through the scene, through that other rail where there is no train now, that camera would see that and immediately come back to full frame rate and full resolution. So it's a very smart application. This is not to replace H.265, which is supposedly the next coming of H.264. This will work in conjunction with H.265 when it is available. There you go. And so what we used to stream images in was MPEG-4. When we went to H.264, it saved about 50% on storage and bandwidth requirements. They say H.265 is going to do another 30 to 50 on top of that. Right now, we're working with H.264. That's what we have. And ZipStream works in conjunction with H.264, like I mentioned. So that can save you another, depending on the complexity of the scene, an average of 50% storage and bandwidth savings on top of what you already have with H.264. So for large installations, when you're looking at 50 cameras or more, this can save you from having to go from a 15 terabyte storage down to 7. That's a lot of savings. And so throughout the world, really, Axis is known for its quality and its cameras and for its support. Like I mentioned, since 2013, we've kind of entered into trying to provide a whole solution to our customers. This is one of those products. This is the A8004 VE network door station. So, like our cameras, it is completely IP-based, and it is great for schools, city surveillance, where you need to identify people walking up to a restricted gate or a locked door. Gives you reliable two-way communication, and you can record what is happening at all these entrances. This is just a closer up look. It has a vandal-resistant aluminum body. What's most important is the camera that's built into it. It is a very light-sensitive camera, and number 5 there is an illuminated call button. At nighttime in complete darkness, that button will illuminate somebody's face enough to allow the camera to get a good look at it. It can power doors and locks. It has a loudspeaker and a microphone with noise cancellation, so also great for loading docks where you have noisy trucks. I do want to point out, though, that this is good for a many-to-one scenario where you have one or more door stations going back to one, probably in most cases, receptionist. You could have one at your front entrance. You could have one at the loading dock. Maybe an office that you need security at, and those will all call back to a central location, whether it be pulled into a video management software or the A8004 can also fully integrate with any SIP phone. So from that device, you can call directly to a receptionist with a phone. She can answer it, or he can answer it, and either allow or not allow entrance. This is not made for a one-to-many scenario, like an apartment complex where you have a call button at the front door to call all the different apartments. The last product I want to touch on is the S10 recorder series. So this is another new endeavor for Axis. This is a series of network video recorders. Out of the box ready, they come with our video management software, Axis Camera Station, preloaded and pre-installed, which makes it very easy on our integrators, and it also makes it very easy on the end users who use this. Efficient maintenance, we have on-site repair if something were to happen. And a couple challenges that face our end users now is restricted access to security equipment, restricted budgets, and restricted knowledge, which can make all these products very difficult to use. But the S10 recorder series makes it very easy, actually. Like I said, everything comes pre-installed and pre-configured, so it's almost out of the box ready. As you can see here, there are 3 different recorders The S1016, which comes with 16 channels of the access camera station preloaded and pre-installed, the 32, which has 32, and the 48, which has 48 licenses. The S1016 can act as both the server and the client, so if you have a system of 16 channels or less, plug it all into a switch, plug this device into a switch, plug a monitor into the S1016, and you're off and running. The other two are rack mountable and server-only products. Those will require you to have a separate viewing station, but we do have our own DS9001, which has a port in the back for 2 HDMI monitors. Varying storage right now, the S1016 has 3 terabytes, all the way up to 15 terabytes in the S1048. Okay. Just wrapping up very quickly, like I said, we have support not only for these S10 series, but anybody that calls into our tech support team, which sits up the road, well not up the road, in Massachusetts in Chelmsford. The average wait time for anybody calling in is less than a minute. They're very helpful, so if anything happens, give them a call. For the S10 series, if there's any problems, 48 hours most, we'll have somebody on site to take a look at that. Typical installations, schools, city surveillance, hotels, manufacturers, anything from 16 to 100 cameras, really. Just wrapping up, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you, JKS, for having us. And if you guys need any more information, want that hardening guide, or have any security requests, come see me. I'm happy to help.